My name is Michael Gross, and I play Bert Gummer in Tremors. I had been on a top 10 television show for 10 years. 7 years. My first reaction was astonishment that this sci-fi horror film was even coming to call. Most casting directors don't have a great imagination. This would be very much casting against type, and I was surprised. I got into the audition room with the director and the writers, and I thought to myself, and I still expressed to them, I said, this has to be some mistake. I think I said that. Come on, you can't be seriously asking for me here. I said, I'm one of America's nicest fathers, television fathers. What's going on? Lo and behold, they had seen several other things I had done and said, no, we think this guy's got range. Well, let's bring you in. I mean, I enjoyed the script for the first time I saw it, but I thought, this can never happen. It's casting against type. And the movie industry is a safe industry. They're spending a lot of money. They want somebody who's known for something else. They must have somebody else in mind, but somebody's told them they had to look at me. Obviously, I impressed them enough that they said, okay, let's do this. Let's try this. I'm forever thankful for their courage in looking outside of what should have been a very simple choice for them. Let's get somebody who's done something like this before. They were thinking outside the box, and bless them for it. I mean, every actor who wants to do something different is extremely grateful to the casting directors who are able to look beyond the obvious. So, as I say, very grateful for that. There is a story, Ron Underwood may tell you this story. He swears to this day that I got into the character and was at some point was on top of his desk with an imaginary gun, saying these lines, but perched on top of his desk. I don't remember that. I've said to Ron, that must have been somebody else in the room. I think I'm too well behaved to do that. No, he said, you jumped on top of my desk with this imaginary gun, shooting graboids. And all I can tell him is, I have no memory of that, none. And I swear to God, I think he's thinking of somebody else. But whatever I did enough to convince him that he bought it. Well, I had to keep the memory of the original films very, very close to me. Bert has a very specific voice, and I wanted to do justice to them. I felt very protective of not only Bert, but the entire franchise. When they were no longer a part of the franchise, it was very upsetting for me, frankly, because I thought they were the heart and soul. They were the creators. And so I felt off balance, quite frankly, and so tried to preserve as much as I could. I became an advocate, not only for Bert, but with the franchise, with a new set of writers. Now, that being said, Universal Studios was ready to go in a different direction. It had been 13 years since we had done a Tremors 4, something like 12, 13 years. And they said, there's a different audience out there, that people have never seen it before. We want to reintroduce it to them. These are now, half the audience are gamers. It's a whole different group. So we want to update it. I wasn't sure what that meant. I found out later some of what it meant. Amidst all the newness of it, we try to preserve some of the old. That was the part I felt I played in this piece in some way. As late as the seventh one, I have a lot to do with Bert's dialogue, with his emotional through line, the scenes he plays with people, particularly the emotional journey he takes in the piece. The action adventure, other people can take care of that. I enjoy it to a point, but I'm interested in Bert's life, his emotional life going through the piece. The biggest change is from one and all the others is less money was spent on each subsequent film. That presented challenges of its own. Not that there's certain things we could not do. The biggest change overall in 5, 6, and 7 is, of course, the use of CGI, because we were still using some three-dimensional pieces in 1 through 4. So that's by far the biggest change. But nothing that we couldn't get away with. I can't think of any more restrictions in terms of stunts. What I can certainly say is when you have less time to do things, when you're rushing, when you try and pack in more, accidents can happen. Stunt people are the first to tell you, you can hurt yourself badly out there if you don't allow time for these things to be rehearsed and rehearsed well. Physics and gravity have ways of playing with you. You have no idea, and so you've always got to be watching out for that. I've hurt myself to a degree in every one of these. As a matter of fact, I'm now being treated for a rotator cuff injury in Tremors 7. This left shoulder of mine is giving me problems. I broke a couple ribs in Tremors 5 or 6, I forget. And there's always something. You've never seen claustrophobia like that. Yes, I have been inside a graboid, even though I knew I would be going home to my own bed and a nice hot meal that night. It was frighteningly claustrophobic because I literally had to go underground, enter into this thing, have a membrane put over me, its skin, dirt, all that sort of thing, and then have somebody atop me coming at me with a chainsaw to open that up again. So I would say the greatest thing was just being enclosed. It was a little like being entombed. I mean, just doing the stunt. It couldn't have been much closer. I think I was on my knees, sort of folded over in a kind of fetal position, so I could pop up out of this as I was cut out. I think we probably did a couple of takes. Boy, you want to get it right the first time because it takes so long to reset, and you don't want to be the one responsible for them having to start over again. Just resetting things like that, it takes time. It takes a big bite out of the day. One of the big things about actors, you want to be so prepared that you're not the one who screws things up. You're not the one who's responsible for the day going much longer than it should. People say, why do you learn lines so well? Or why do you prepare so much? I said, simply to avoid public embarrassment. It's that simple. In front of the crew, your peers, the other professionals who are working around you. You don't want to be the one to screw it up. It's embarrassing. There were sometimes when we shot this in wintertime, particularly the other films, 2, 3, 4, we sometimes shot at least one of them sort of late in the year, and so we had shorter days, and simply the loss of light earlier in the day it becomes a real problem. A lot of this is exterior stuff, so making the best use of that time is important. We faced other things, very high winds and a lot of dust in South Africa where we were shooting 5 and 6. The last one, 7, presented its own set of obstacles in that the heat and humidity of Thailand was truly oppressive. There were at least 12-hour days, 6-day weeks, and people asked me, oh, how is Thailand? And I said it was miserable for me. I was not there on vacation. I was there to work. I took about a week, 10 days afterwards, to enjoy myself and travel around a bit and enjoy some of the sights. But you feel as if you're in training and you just have to stay in training to get through those other 6 days of the week. Offset occasionally, yeah, usually not when we're working. We always seem to be under such pressure to get the job done with so few hours and so little light and all this sort of thing, that I don't do a lot of that. I'm actually quite businesslike. Off the set, I can be insane. But when we're doing the work, my thing is always, I want to be here as little time as possible, get the work done, because I love time off. I love time in the bed, having a meal, getting a shower, and reading my lines for the next day, as opposed to wasting time when the cameras are rolling. So I'm actually pretty businesslike. Maybe a little too serious. No, I'm not too serious. I mean, I joke around, but it's like, okay, let's move on. So pranks, no, not if it's going to interrupt the work. I remember Tremors 1, there were some old pictures of Reba and I walking around with other people's wigs on and things like this, looking not at all like, we look like a bad rock band, Reba and I, because we've had both, long-haired wigs and things like this. Some of the most fun we have in preparing for the day. I think we were trying to get over our own nerves. A lot of the silliness happens in makeup rooms. When we're all lined up in chairs together, getting our makeup on, preparing for the day, could be very early in the day, we're half asleep, some of us, and making fun of each other for the work the day before. Giving each other shit to put it lightly. Just like, boy, you ruined that shot yesterday, didn't you? Just giving each other a hard time, just playing off each other with silliness. And we all know how difficult the work is. You have to be accustomed to making a fool of yourself and not worrying about it in front of other people. There's some terribly embarrassing things happen. In Tremors 7, for example, I worked with a flamethrower. Okay, and this is a good 40-pound tank on my back. They had a stand-in, but the stand-in couldn't be found, so I'm actually walking around with the 40 pounds. And I had to, maybe I'm giving too much away, but machetes. I was working with machetes, and this 40 pounds on my back, and I reached up with this machete to take my center of balance was just so high, my center of gravity, and over I went onto my back. Obviously a ridiculous outtake now, onto my back with the flamethrower on, and landed directly in a huge puddle of mud. Well, it was absurd. And I felt like a beetle on my back because I couldn't get up by myself. My legs and arms are going like this. And the entire crew, half of the crew is worried that I've actually hurt myself badly. And the other one is, it's one of the silliest things. They said I was so pissed off because I knew that now I had to get all this gear off, clean, do the shot again, but get the mud off the wardrobe. So I'd have a complete change of wardrobe. So I found the whole thing really aggravating. I was pissed off at myself, sorry that I lost my balance, and now we got to take all this time. But within a half an hour, I was saying to the producers, you got to save that stock. That's got to go in the outtakes because it's ridiculous. And I said, I'll even narrate. I said, this is what happens when you have 3 glasses of wine during lunch. You can no longer stay on your feet. So you realize in the moment it's anger provoking and frustrating, and then in the next moment you go, hey, that's a great shot to see this action hero completely go off his feet and land on his back in a mud puddle. I said, don't throw that away. We got to use that on the outtakes. I don't recall. I think we were so well prepared in that first film. We had months of time to work on that film as opposed to 5 weeks on Tremors 7. When you start rushing is when the mistakes get greater, when you don't have the time, when the time is compressed, when people are saying, go, 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 we're losing the light. That becomes troublesome and is a lot less fun. Some of the things I just remember is the time we had with cast. Reba and I, because we were in a lot of scenes together, spent a lot of time off together as well. Just walking from our motel into town and grabbing a bite to eat and, talking about this, that, and the other thing. There are things you don't even see on the set right now. We used to sit I have photographs I took of people sitting in their director's chairs between shots reading books. None of us had devices. We didn't have cell phones. We weren't doing this. We were actually turning pages on books or magazines as we sat in our chairs. It feels like a different time entirely. Most fans are extremely positive, and they want to express how much Tremors has meant to them over the years, how much joy you've brought them, that sort of thing. Occasional questions of how was so-and-so to work with, what did you, Reba, talk about, this sort of thing. But mostly expressions of joy, gratitude, sharing stories about how much they enjoyed it growing up, how much it meant to them. A couple of years ago, I have a Facebook page. And a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 Halloweens ago, I sponsored a Burt Gummer Halloween costume contest for kids. It was only for kids. And so I said to people, look, send in pictures of your kids dressed as whatever, something Tremors. It can be Burt. I think it was Burt only, because people had sent me a few of those over time, and I said, this would be a great contest. And it was great just judging them. I said, they've got to be in by a certain time. I wound up picking about 5 who I thought were the absolutely best and sent Tremors memorabilia to them, photos and some copies of the scripts and things like this. And So that was fun. That was something where I asked them to do something. Most of the time, it's simple questions like, when's the next one coming out? You've just done 7. When will there be an 8? I say, 7 hasn't come out yet. I am not as faithful to the Facebook page as I'd like, just simply because I have a private life. I have a love-hate relationship with social media in general, because although I like hearing what fans have to say and occasionally I respond, it becomes another job in a way, something I have to set aside my own life and do that. It's nice just being in touch with them, and they are wonderfully rabid.
So fans make their own stuff, and you can, well, I mean, did you see that big soft toy today? That big plush,
Yes,
homemade graboid made by
I did.
a lady in Liverpool? And people make lampshades and even erotic underwear.
I haven't got Burt Gummer erotic underwear yet, but maybe it's graboid erotic underwear. I'm sure it's monsters. Monsters on my knickers, eh?
I'll show it to you later in the bar.
I had no idea that was being done. But, there's also, fans also have their comparisons. Everybody's a critic. Oh, I like 2 better than 1. Nothing was ever good as 1. 4 was my favorite, second favorite, all that sort of thing. Everybody's got an opinion. I liked where you did this, I didn't like that. And as Bert would say, I do the best I can with what I got. You can't please everybody all the time. No, and I doubt that that Universal will ever let go of it too. When I'm dead and gone, they'll probably find somebody else hunting these very same monsters. I don't know. As a matter of fact, when we've done, most of them has been in the desert, the first 4, certainly in arid climates. In 5, we took it to South Africa. In 6, we took it to the Arctic region. And in 7, we were in the jungle. Frankly, I said to the producers, during 7, I said, at this point, I can't think of another storyline, and I can't think of another location. We've done these various locales, and I can't think of another location. Right now, I think I'm having, just Tremors overload. That is to say, after finishing 7, it's like, okay, I don't want to think about this for a little while. And I said, I can think of absolutely nothing. Can almost promise you there'll never be an urban Tremors film, because it's just too expensive for them. They don't want to spend the money to block off streets and involve entire street scenes and all that sort of thing. Probably wouldn't even be made on a back lot. One of the reasons it stays, part of it is, one of the things that keeps happening in these films is geographic isolation. So you can't just bring the army in to fix this. These are people who find themselves in rural locations, in isolated areas, having to think on their own, having to think on their feet. If you were in an urban area, it'd simply say, call the SWAT team. So that's one of the reasons you'll probably never see an urban environment with the Tremors. One of the things I've always insisted upon, and we agreed upon very, very early on, was that though Bert loves guns, and Bert's never seen a gun he doesn't like, they've never turned on any humans in these films. It's not about us going after terrorists or another army of human beings or bad guys. The good guys are the humans, and the bad guys are the monsters. It's that simple. The guns, as many as they are turned on monsters and never on each other. We like that aspect of it, and it's something we adhere to. In the last one, there was a scene where Bert was asked to just put his hand on his gun and, in front of somebody else. I said, no, I'm not even going to make that gesture. I'm not even going to put the hand on the gun as if I'm let's find another way to disarm the situation, as opposed to Bert looking as if he might shoot somebody. I see he doesn't shoot other people. He shoots monsters. So let's keep it simple. I mentioned a line earlier. One of my favorites is, and this is, I think it's just a good one for life, doing what I can with what I got. It's the best all of us can do. And I think it speaks well to all of us. We've all been given a different set of circumstances, a different set of talents. And sometimes you don't have what it takes. But by golly, you could find that thing within yourself that works for what you need at the moment. So I do love that line, doing what I can with what I got. I think that's good preaching for life in general. There are great fun lines. I feel I was denied critical, need to know information. The first kill in the first piece broke into the wrong goddamn rec room, didn't you, you bastards? Bird is full of great things like that. One of the things I've loved about the Tremors franchise is it feels like an old-fashioned family film. A small number of people fighting a monster. The cohesiveness of a small community that bands together to deal with something greater and more dangerous than itself. The cohesiveness that people can find working together. I think it's a very old-fashioned sort of film in that way, and that keeps it very, very family-friendly. We may have disagreements among themselves, but when push comes to shove, we band together and do what's necessary.